Okay, thanks, and we're back for the regular meeting now. And so, I keep on asking this, but I just trying to make sure, if I'm going to ask for a change of the agenda, do I do that before the public comment period, public comment, or can I do it after?
Do it after.
Okay, so we'll open up the public comment again to go over the agenda items for the regular meeting. And if anybody has any comments on the agenda items, again, the number is 702-589-9629. Not hearing any comments, we'll discuss the agenda right quick. So what I see is I believe we probably want to keep the first two on there. I guess the question is Marvis, you're the last one in the audience, so do we want to move I don't think number 3 is going to have much, but do we want to move number 4 into number 3, just so, because I think that's the last thing that Marvis and, I'm sorry, the other, Mike?
Yeah, it's mostly Marvis.
You know, if either one needs to be here after that, I think the rest of them are pretty much the committees, so it's just a matter of if there's anything to move those or not, otherwise I think we're okay. Dennis, do you see, or do we have that much information on the rate studies, or does anybody else know?
Yeah, it'll be short.
Okay. Because there might be some things that Mike or Marvis might be able to help us on the integrated plan. Does anybody else have reason to move anything around? Okay, so let's start off then with we'll just go down the agenda items then. We'll just go with the regular order. And we'll start off with number 1. And so I guess right now, do we have any comments on the minutes and or any corrections?
I'd like to make one comment about this. It's just a comment, it's not a correction. But as I was trying to read down through this to see if I had any corrections to it, my memory back to November the 4th isn't always the greatest. And I got down here to Larry's Carr's comment, when projects would be designed and put out for bid, he was asking Dennis that, and Dennis replied, information back to you at the next meeting. Well, I couldn't remember the next meeting on the 18th of November either, so I started looking for the minutes for the 18th, and we don't have those yet. So since the minutes were put out for November 4th, we've had 1, 2, 3 meetings which we don't have minutes for. I just was questioning, why does it take so long?
I think it took this so long for the past few meetings because of the holidays and everything. The people who we send to get the minutes transcribed, they were delayed, so.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, do you think that'll improve in January?
It should. They already sent me, they sent me an email, I think it was today, of a couple of minutes that I sent them for transcription. So I think they're getting back into the swing of things since the holiday break.
Okay.
I have a question. The agenda says approval of the November 4th Utility Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Aren't we looking at both the workshop and the regular meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I think since they were both done on the same day, I think we have a little leeway to approve both, don't we? It's because it is a little bit worded, but I think we have a little bit of leeway, don't we? Is that
That's a good point. We can just clean that up, but I think you can still vote on them today.
Does anybody have any concerns with that? Okay, because like I said, I thought we had a little leeway, so that's the reason I didn't say anything in advance. I was hoping we did.
Yeah, well, I think if they would have happened on different days, that would have been different.
Yeah.
I can follow back up with the clerk's office and have a concern, we can just bring them back and do them independently.
Okay, yeah, we just don't want to violate anything.
Right.
So, anything else, Eileen? Okay, thank you. It's a good point. I guess, so either here on item 5 is action timescales, or on 7 to talk about deliverables. Since deliverables are related to the minutes, is that okay to talk about that now? Dennis or Josh, you see any problem?
I would probably just get the minutes done and then do it under the other item.
Okay. So what I saw, we made our corrections and they were accepted, so I did not see anything else. And Eileen, does anybody else see anything else that need to be corrected on the minutes? Okay, so hearing none, then I make a motion to approve the workshop minutes and the regular minutes. Do we need to do it separately, or is it?
Just separately.
Okay, so let's go and we'll approve the workshop minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Eileen, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So passed unanimously. Okay, then I make a motion to approve the November 4th regular committee minutes.
I'll second.
Thanks, Eileen. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so we will close that one down. So now for number 2, what I would suggest is that we can, if there's anything left over from the capital improvement, and let me understand. So first off, since we weren't able to, we're still working on information, so we don't have a report to vote on. My thing is, if we need to discuss a little more on the capital plan, we would be able to do that on this agenda item. Is that okay with you, Dennis, or? Mm-hmm. Okay, does anybody else have any more? Greg, you have your hand.
We don't have any more discussion, but to let the general public understand, we are going to have a meeting that is going to finite the 5-year capital improvement plan based upon our workshop, and then we will come back in February and vote on it.
And the one thing too, I guess that was brought up in the workshop, and Eileen helped, and I think that was some of the confusion, and is what was that descriptions compared to definitions. So it is labeled on the sheets that were handed out or part of the package for the workshop. What do you call these? Is it just the your page with the photos and all that? What's that?
We just call them project sheets.
Project sheets. Thank you. So on the project sheets, it is project description. So thank Greg and Eileen both. Thanks for making sure. So I guess for the report, then we'd want its description instead of definition. So I apologize for any confusion.
That is correct. No, we're aware of what we got to do. We'll produce a good product and we'll have it ready for February.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify from anything on the workshop. Was there any questions? So on this, we do have the priorities, and so that would probably, from the project descriptions from the worksheet packet, you have priority categories. And so that would be, I assume, would be probably put into the write-up that you're gonna do, Dennis, so to help with what has to be done and not be
Yes.
done and all that.
Yeah, that'd be easy enough.
Okay. Was there anything, since we didn't get to these at all, I think we can still sort of pull that information over. Was there anything that you had that you wanted to bring to our attention that might be helpful?
I don't think I have any additional. I do just want to follow up on the workshop real fast. I know this is related but somewhat unrelated. But from a deliverable standpoint, we agreed to provide a project progress spreadsheet, which we will make sure we do. I know, George, if you're still wanting the Socrata demo, we can certainly set that up.
Well, it shouldn't be just for me. If I'm the only one who wants it, I wouldn't insist on it.
I mean, we can even do it at the meeting, I guess. That's something we could add to a future meeting.
That or just discuss it. So let's look at that on agenda item, future agenda items. We can bring it up
Okay.
then.
And then, of course, the main item for our deliverable is for the meeting on the 5th for the FY22 to FY26 CIP. So that's what I saw as deliverables for, essentially for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Anybody else can?
Eileen, you're the one great with that. Did you catch anything?
I missed what you said the first one was going to be.
The project progress spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah.
So then we'll do that at, so do we need to put an agenda item down or how do we do that for the deliverables? Or I guess so we talk about it in the next one, so we'll talk about it on
Agenda items.
items and then so again, okay, thanks. Now, I guess what I would like to, if everybody doesn't mind, because I think we actually have a little bit of time to discuss some of this, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but I think the sheets that were handed out to us that were part of the package, so it was the electrical category, funding, and then the sewer, the water, and all those. So I think most everybody got the big version. Does everybody mind if we just go through that a little bit? I think we cleared up most of the confusion, but I'd like to sort of make sure that I'm on the same page. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Dennis, are you okay?
Yes, I just need to get me a big version. You got any spares on the larger version of these? Okay. Too small for my eyes, too,
Okay,
even with the glasses.
gotcha. Let's see, well, while we're doing that, then, let me see, was there anything else on the, okay, so I think with the new, the working capital, I think with the information that you're gonna bring forward, that will be a lot cleaner and easier to talk about in February. But I think if we talk about this funding, so maybe I can do right quick while he's gone, is that, because it's not on here. So, see, do we have three sources of funding. Well, if we lump the voter, well, see, I guess there would be four funds of funding sources for the capital, I believe. You have anything that's from the rate, revenues from the rate could be used for the capital. We have the available cash could be used. Is that correct? And I guess, Dennis, if you don't mind saying yes, because...
Yes, that is correct.
Sorry, I can't see the shaking the head.
Sorry, yes.
And then, so then we have the finance... we have the finance, the infrastructure tax, with that a half a quarter cents or
So
something like
we have a
that?
quarter-cent sales tax. It's actually the SNWA quarter-cent sales tax that is for water and sewer.
Correct, and
So that's just for water and sewer.
and just for water and sewer and just for capital. Is that what I understood one time you said?
It can be capital or debt service.
Debt or debt service, okay. So it's under that category, okay? And then we have this voter approved and or lease the revenues that might fall under, or possibly there might be something under the council preview that would allow us to use some of the lease monies also, if I'm understanding correctly. So there's 4 separate categories, and I think that's where we're all trying to make sure we understand the funding. So this, now that we all have it, this helps us. And you bring in one of the 4 categories into this spreadsheet, and then do you have the water? Do you have the infrastructure water in the water?
That's a good question.
I don't think it is.
I think it's just shown as a revenue on the water side.
Okay, but it's not shown as a revenue in the Raft-Tillis report. So
Yeah,
that's,
they broke out the quarter-cent sales
So
tax,
that's-
but it all goes into the same pot, whether it's capital or operating, or, well, that one's just for capital.
yeah, it was just capital. That's why it's
That's why they
specific.
broke it out.
Yeah, so we need to be understanding. So right now, what I understand, and that's one thing that the rate study did give us, even if we reduce the rates with what's been suggested, and we can talk about that more in the rate study if we need to, that there's still enough revenues to cover the projects that we have under the 5-year plan. Did I understand the report so far? We haven't got the final yet, but from the draft, did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
And so right now, so what these sheets tell us, to go into that, is that we don't have, the projects aren't dependent on the voter-approved funds, but they offset them.
That's correct.
And
They
also,
help.
And also what we find out is right now, so we have voter-approved number 3, SIP number 3, all of that money has been collected?
I don't believe so. I think they're building that project in phases, as he mentioned, and I don't know if it's 3 or 4 phases total, but they pay by phase.
So,
There's one more phase owed to us. I'm sorry for interrupting. There's one more phase owed to us.
okay, so do we know, though, if the money that we're pulling from it from 22 and 23, is that money that's already been collected, or is that still, not sure?
I would have to check on that.
Okay, because that's the thing I guess that would just be helpful, is
Yep.
is if there is anything that's still outstanding, then that would be because we would assume that money's available by this report. There's nothing in this report that tells us that money's not available.
Right.
And so if the money isn't in there, then it's saying it's so the project isn't contingent on getting the money. It's just whether it's offset or not. I keep on repeating myself, but I'm just trying to clarify. So correct, Dennis?
That's correct.
Okay. So if, though, for instance, since it's a pretty large sum, the 1.2 million, the money was still to be collected, then we'd have to make sure that we had that either in revenues. So being electrical, it'd have to be either in revenues or it would have to be in available funds to
Right.
cover that.
Right.
Okay. So then it's just trying to make sure that we're all clear on that one.
And
So now if the money comes in, so we've still got more money, and the money from the voter approved 350, if that comes in since it was voted on, does that still go past 23, or does 23 say, well, you only did it for 7 years? Is it what money came in, or just the 7-year period?
it's just the 7-year period, and then I think that ends. And then that's what we did in the rate study, I believe.
But it's okay, so let's say that we don't get, that nothing happens with track 350 until 2024. The voters approved that money, but the money did not come in the 7-year period.
I don't think the track 350 is relying on the 7-year period. It's just whenever the sale happens.
I beg to differ. Track 350 is not allocated for utility funds. Track 350 is
Oh, you're
split
correct.
50%,
That's public safety.
30% public safety needs and remaining, and then it ran off the screen.
Okay, I got you. Good, no, appreciate it, good catch.
And just for an update,
And we define those pretty well in the rate study, so when we pull that up, you'll be able to see those definitions.
and just for clarification, on January 12th of '21, City Council is going to vote upon, for possible action, another 30 residential reservations being converted into, for construction here on the Boulder Hills Estates, and that's when that other money will come in.
And then we need to, but would it be helpful for this committee to, because we've been talking about that, whether that needs to be suggested to the council to be put down as another election ballot question, to whether to extend that for future. So if future land sales come up, can that be put up for utilities? It'd have to be worded different. It'd have to be, but in the solar, we still need to figure out the solar. So after 2023, the council would have to say if some of the portion that they have control of would have to be, but we have nothing that's no longer, that is earmarked for the utilities after 23.
That's right.
So should we put something together to ask for that, and can it be done now, or are we too late to be put on the ballot?
It might be too late to be put on the ballot, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be put on the ballot this year.
Well, if it's on, because I think it's 20, is it 22 or 23, because it's a 2-year, I think now we're in a 2-year cycle, so I'm not sure when the next ballot would be.
I think it's 22 as well, because the way they're changing up the election years.
Okay, well,
That's,
that's what I'm just trying to make sure, if, so then that gives us plenty of time to get something suggested and worked on. It's just, I just want to make sure that we have funding sources. We want to have them available.
Even if you missed a year, it wouldn't be a huge impact.
Okay, well, so far, the way that these projects are going, the future's looking pretty good after 23, but hopefully things a major shoe doesn't drop. So I was just trying to that's what I wanted to do with this. I wanted to clarify and make sure that the committee is on the same page in how the capital is funded, because it's, sometimes it's a little different. And I even saw, I think it was in a 2018 package, that it said that there was a capital improvement account and money came out of that. And I haven't seen that since then. And so I just making sure I understood the different funds or places that the money came from.
Yeah, and I know they've been defined in those brochures.
That's the reason I was asking for the brochures, but I'm not, it'd be interesting if it's going forward. In some of the past years, one brochure had it, but then another brochure didn't, so that was confusing too.
Yep.
So hopefully.
We'll follow up on that.
Okay, and that was one of the reasons I wanted that tentative brochure, to sort of feel what was going forward. Go ahead.
At the end of each month, when finance does their reporting to the city manager, they have a cash by fund. And at the end of October, which is the last one that's been published, in the utilities, there's available cash of almost $35 million. So we're not going to run out of money, to fund capital projects.
And moving forward, if let's say for some reason that dries up or it's not available, now that we have the financial model, we can just remove it from the CIP, remove the dollar amount that's coming from that funding source and see what the impact is to the cash flow. And if it's an issue, that would probably mean, to move a project out or something like that.
Okay. What is a feasible time frame to ask for the breakout of the available cash for each utility fund? So the last one I think we had is from June 30th, 2020. It's included, I believe it's included in Raftillis's report, but I don't know if anyplace else. It would be very helpful to see that somewhat on a regular basis. It'd be great to have it monthly. I just didn't know what would be feasible to ask for the breakout.
Yeah, that's a question I'll have to get from finance, but
okay.
The breakout between cash?
Yeah, if we could bring it back in February, that would be
between
helpful.
Capital and operating, right?
Okay, no, so make sure what I want is so we have available cash, as if Marty, you're saying, so from the city manager's report, it shows us we have, was it up to 50 million now? Or is it 40-something?
Well, the last report that I have, she'll put out the November report next Tuesday to the city council, and I assume that'll come out on tomorrow probably.
Yep.
That'll be in the agenda packets for November. But at the end of October, which is the last one that I've seen published, available utility cash was 34,663,017 to be exact. And,
Okay.
and that's, the total cash in the utility funds on this report shows that there's a total of $53 million. There's 1.2 million of it's restricted and 17 million of it is reserved, which I'm assuming some of that would be for capital projects.
No, but my understanding is that because it looks like that's all reserved money, so I believe there should be another page in there that has reserves, and that reserves should add up to that 17 million.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so
yeah.
that is strictly, now the restricted is confusing, because I've seen that, but I don't, so Dennis, if you could ask finance what the restricted is, that would be helpful. But I guess it would be nice to see the breakout each month, but if it's quarterly or by year, it would be still helpful. Because then we understand, because our big concern right now, the biggest concern is electrical. We say that over and over again, because right now, we've got $19 million in the ongoing amount that is currently of $19 million that's been budgeted just for through 21. And then we've got the 4.2 in 22. And we have 600,000 of that is covered, but that's still a lot of money that we have to, so if we understand that, I believe we have that in the electrical, if I've understood from Ref. Tillis's report, but I'm not positive.
Yep.
So if we can get the breakout, then that would be.
And so the actual
helpful.
I want to make sure I get the breakout. I know you'd like to see what is the restricted.
Well, that'd be helpful, yeah, so.
And then the breakout between,
Yeah, so out of that $34.6 million, what does each utility have?
okay,
What
each
does
utility, gotcha.
Yeah, electrical, water, and all that.
Okay.
And, okay. So, was there anything else on this form that you wanted to point out, Dennis?
No, that was it. This is just a new form that Carol had created, and we just decided to add it just for the additional detail.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, so once we get it in large print,
Well, I agree. And then
it helps a lot.
for the future, since this is the first time, we'll maybe add some further description to each one of those CIPs, so it's right on here, so we don't have to go between documents.
That would be
Because I
fantastic.
can't remember them all the time either. So.
Yeah, because I remember in the past years, it would be in one document would explain it, another document wouldn't,
Right.
so you'd have to find that document. Okay, so, Greg pointed out for the record, about the voting on the report. And is there anything else on the capital improvement plan that anybody else would like to go over?
I just had a comment. I don't know where this fits in, but so in theory, we're going to be presenting the FY22 to the council on January 26th. And the question, I don't know where if this fits in the agenda, but who's going to do that? Are you going to do that then?
As I stated in the past meetings, I will not be there. So is that on the agenda? Is that on the agenda for the council
So the agenda
for the committee to show the council?
for the second meeting in January,
It's on the.
Yes.
So what's the agenda item?
I think it's just a report from, I don't know how we describe the report from the Utility Advisory Committee on the,
Right.
yeah.
But, so the email I got from the mayor is I spoke with Michael Mays today and he advised the information we placed on the city council agenda for the 12th of January. So obviously that didn't happen. What assurance do we have that it will happen for the next meeting?
It's already been added to the agenda.
But it was added to that one too and then removed.
It was never added by us.
So who decides the agenda? Fine.
We do, typically.
Okay. So you're giving us your word, so to speak, that it actually will happen this time?
Yes.
Okay.
It's already been sent to the clerk's office
So then
as a draft, just because we have to get the titles in tomorrow, I believe. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
there's deadlines for these meetings to submit the titles and the staff reports and everything.
All right.
And the deadlines are usually like weeks out, so there was no way we were gonna make the the 12th meeting because that deadline was like in December or something before we
Right, but the email I got was, anyway, I don't want to start arguing. It was December 21, but so then if Larry's not going to do it, is it okay if I do it, or does someone else want to do it?
Well, I'm not, it's not that I'm not going to do it, I'm not available to do it.
Right,
Let's
which means
clarify it.
Yeah, that means you're not going to do it. I'm not trying to, if you're not available, you're not going to do it. You can't be not available and do it.
I'd like George to do
Don't
it.
argue the semantics. We've got till the 22nd to figure out who's going to do it.
Well, unfortunately, it's best since we won't meet again, since you're the vice chair, George, and if you stated last time you'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, I'm up for doing it. I just want to be clear so we know, since this is the last meeting prior to that meeting.
Yeah, and I guess it's just to make it clear, it's, all we're doing is talking about the reports, and so that's what the agenda is. There shouldn't be any major ad-libbing to
Or if you don't trust me, you can go and do it.
No, wait, stop, guys.
Well, and we do need to verify what reports we're talking about exactly, because we sent the two to city council already. And is that the reports we're talking about?
Well, the FY22 CIP, I think the other one's out of date because it was written prior to,
Okay, so that's.
I mean,
what-
I don't care if you want to put it in there, but
What do you mean it's out of date? How is it out of date? No, we're talking, we have two reports that have been, we have three reports. We have one that is very old. We have two that we emailed, that was emailed, I believe, on the 18th or the 17th of December.
Yep,
One is related to the rate study,
correct.
and it was just a preliminary, it was initial, we did as initial report of the rate study.
Right.
And then the second one was the CIP. So both of those are still accurate. I don't understand, are those is the rate study the one that says it's out of date?
in my mind, it's out of date because it was prior to receiving the draft report from Raftelis, and all we essentially said is we didn't have enough information. I mean, I'm happy to present it to the council. It had 13 resolutions basically saying we don't have enough information, but we unanimously opposed the franchise fee and the increased transfers to the general fund. But that seems to me out of date in the sense that the Raftelis report appeared after that. I don't mind putting it in there. The mayor thought it was a rate study report. I told him, no, it's not a rate study report. It's just some comments we had at their request.
No, it was a comment on what the information we had on the rate study at
Correct.
the time. But it's up to the committee, what the committee would like
I
to
don't care.
present at the time. So do we have any ideas from anybody?
At a minimum, I think the best one, in my mind, would be the FY22, because that's also on the agenda, and that's the agenda item will be before that. So then if they have any further questions,
I agree with that. So just FY22, not this other thing.
well, it's up to you. I'm just saying, at a minimum.
I think the easier thing for this time is that to go with what the agenda is, the agendas are and stuff, I would agree that they already have the report, but the one that's meaningful at this point is the fiscal year 22.
Right.
That's what I've been trying to say, so we
Okay.
actually agree. Okay.
So we'll make sure the language is related directly to that in the staff report.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so being no additional comments on the capital plan, then I'll go to the utility, we'll close out that and go to the utility rate study update, which Dennis, I guess, is there any comments?
A short update. We just received the final report. We need a day or so to go through it, but we'll try to get it out by Monday to this committee and city council as well. Haven't had any conversations with Raftelis because we just got it. But you'll have it in your hands on or before Monday.
Did they honor our request to do a calculation without the franchise fee? Or?
I haven't checked that yet.
Okay, no
So-
worries. We'll see it soon enough.
Yep. I think the answer is yes, but I need to verify that.
So I guess on that subject, so we're gonna have several things to go over, since we have the draft, we will have the draft accessible by the February meeting, correct?
No, well, it's
The final, excuse me, sorry, I said draft, didn't
You'll
I?
have that.
The final, we have
by
the final,
Monday.
thank you. So we can start talking about it now, because it might be helpful instead of going on with the timescales. Does anybody have any thoughts to how we want to start breaking that report up? So in the draft, they did have some recommendations, which I would assume that would be in the final. Dennis, that's probably the way?
Correct.
And then, so would we start trying to work on the recommendations as soon as possible?
Yes. So, what my thought process, and all of you can certainly chime in, is that the first thing that would go to council would just be the recommendations. Before we get into writing resolutions or anything like that, because it's still up to council whether they accept the recommendations or want to do something different, right? So in my mind, we just need to get something to them on the recommendations. And then once we get that response from city council, or if it's a joint meeting, or if it's a workshop, or whatever it is, then we can decide going forward how we need to move forward to meet budget and everything else for, if we decide we're going to reduce the water service charge $10 and reduce the energy rate, 3% or 3%, then we can go back and write the resolutions after city council kind of agrees with that.
Okay, now, so, make sure I understood what you said. So are you saying just give the council the recommendations and not the full report? Or did I misunderstand?
Well, they can have the full report,
Oh,
but I
full
think
report, okay.
a full report, I think we give them the full report the same time we give them to you.
Okay.
Next Monday. That'll give them an opportunity, obviously, to review it as well.
When is it going to be put on the council's agenda?
Well, and that's what we would have to, in order to avoid this whole business impact statement, it needs to be approved with the budget. So, given that, we would want to probably have it at city council in March.
Well, the minimum we need is the recommendation for any rate change.
Correct.
The rest of it isn't as,
Well, once we get it, and we would just need to include it in the budget process.
okay, so.
And it would eventually have to go back as a resolution to city council.
Correct. So, but I think we already have, that was one of the things for February, but I don't know if we still have it or not. We originally wanted to start discussing the resolution so that we would be on top of that.
Right.
Because even by just reviewing it doesn't mean we're going to change anything. We
Right.
just have an understanding. And
Yeah,
what
we
want
can
to
do that. We can bring those resolutions to the February meeting, just
So
the existing ones.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll look at the timescales, so we'll look at, I just realized we missed 1, 5 to 7, missed 6, agenda number 6, but
Oh,
no
whoops.
problem.
So the adoption of the final budget is May 25th.
Okay. So we need everything, so you're March.
Yeah, we kind of need to wrap everything up before that date.
March.
The city council is having a workshop to review the budgets on February 10th. That's our first meeting.
I'm looking at that right now. Yes, and that is the operating budgets, I believe.
And the rates would have an effect on that, correct?
Correct. So, yes.
Well, that's when I think we need to.
And I'm having my first meeting with finance tomorrow, so I'm not sure if they made some assumptions and reduced those revenues in electric and water yet, but I'll find out the answer to that when they do it, because probably what we could do is prepare a budget for each. But if they change something, we'll have to just change it on the run.
So you're saying, which one I would agree with, show it with and without a reduction?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically Raftellus already has that, so we should, but we'll have to look at that budget, so.
And they're, even we'll be making modifications that aren't gonna exactly match up with Raftellus.
Now, is the budget, and then whether we're still on the rate study, I think we are, since it's part of the rate study, is the budget, is that gonna be something we can talk about in February, or are we gonna is the information gonna be available?
Yes.
So February is gonna be either a long meeting or gonna have to be 2 meetings again. Well, because I think so I'm just gonna get a little bit ahead. We'll talk about the future agenda items, but I think we've already agreed that we would do a workshop and a regular meeting again, because we have to vote on a report. It might be though, we have a long workshop and a short, meeting afterwards to vote on, that we'd have to vote on. So we're gonna have some meeting, okay, so we'll talk about that in the future agenda items.
Yeah, but to answer your question, yes, we would want to present at least the draft budget to the committee at the meeting in February.
Okay, so now you're asking you want some information from us on March or at the March meet? So we would have something to vote on March, or just to gather information, discuss it and talk about it and vote on it by April?
I don't even know if the operating budget requires a vote, but it certainly needs a review.
Well, what it would be is we would be voting on something to send to council to say that we recommend the 3%, $10 or whatever.
Yes.
So is that you wanted something voted on by March or voted on by April?
I think we should do it by March.
Okay, so that means we have to have so we need to start discussing the recommendations in February. So next meeting, we have to start discussing the recommendations.
Yeah, so I think, given the fact that we have the study, we'll have it, soon. That should give us enough time to review the study and discuss either at the workshop or workshop and regular meeting in the first meeting in February.
Okay, so since we're on the rate study update, I'd like to just discuss it a little bit. So as people look through the report, I think it will go a lot faster if they've sort of studied the idea that, as I've stated when we were doing the draft, if the cost of service is the same, basically the same information that we received before, I think that's one of the things we should probably talk about first, is that that's a pretty aggressive change, and maybe that's something that we would recommend that's too aggressive and not something we want to do. And I know George and Eileen, you were concerned with a reduction and then an increase with the cost of service. So I think our first aspect is to try to understand the cost of service, and from what I can understand, I'm not sure, and I want to do it as a committee, that it's something that we would do right away, especially in the next several years. So I think that would allow us that's one of the ones we want to do first, and with that, you also would be discussing whether the city pays retail or wholesale, which we've discussed that minimally, but I think we would probably, there's a lot of value to say that it continue the way the city is currently doing it, and we continue to study it, if we just say this is reasonable. So those are two major things that would affect the rate, and if we say we don't agree to the large changes, then the 3% is an easier thing to do. And so those are things that I believe are things that would get us to March faster. Does anybody have comments on that?
Well, as I explained last time, maybe I'm the only one, but I think the rate study is completely flawed. The logic, as I went over the logic, I don't want to repeat it again, but from my perspective, it's circular logic. They assumed what they're trying to prove. So, I don't mind. I think we should get the message to the council that these flaws are there, and not, rubber stamp it and say, well, we're happy, we think it was properly done, because there are really obvious mistakes in this thing that, to my mind, discredit the whole exercise, unless they fixed it miraculously. I haven't seen the final report. I can't prejudge. Maybe they redid everything and it now makes sense, which would surprise me. But I think there should be some mechanism for getting the message. Unless we disagree, maybe some people think it's all solid. But to me, it's completely flimsy. It's not internally consistent with its own. It assumes a cost of service in order to calculate it, which doesn't make any sense to me. And amongst other things, I'm not going to go through my half hour, well, it's only 10 minutes. But there should be some mechanism for getting that information to council, or at least some of us think this report is flawed, and therefore should not be the basis for policy.
Marty?
Well, what I was just going to say was, when you look at revenues and expenses, our revenues in the overall in the utility departments they far exceed what the expenses are. And so I think that 3% could be at least recommended for the next 2 years, and then we can look at it going forward. But on the cost of service, I think that my opinion anyway of it is that it's just moving money around, and it's I just don't think that that's a good thing to bring up at this time. So I'm personally only if for the 3% decrease in the electric rates and the $10 on the water. That's just my opinion.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Eileen, but you had said had concerns before, so.
Well, on the cost of service, I agree with George when he says they make some assumptions on how much water is being used. I do somewhat think that the city should be paying retail because that would encourage them to save water. Right now, many of the fields that they irrigate are not metered. Is that correct?
No, they're all metered. They're not necessarily all on raw. Some are on potable, like the municipal course is on potable, but they're all metered.
Okay, so if they were having to pay retail, they would maybe quit watering at the heat of the day, which many people are concerned with, and water evaporation, and fix leaks that they probably have. And so if they were having to pay the same rate everybody else was, I think they would conserve water, which is something that we want to encourage everyone to do.
So I think if we discuss that item, though, I think we're still, even if we discuss that item, I think we're still okay with the 3% reduction. Do you have any concerns with that? Because I don't believe that would affect the 3% reduction overall.
Well, that would only be if they charged the city the retail rate, but the part of the cost of service study also included an increase in residential fees and a decrease in commercial.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In my opinion, that's what I want to discuss in February, is that it's a very aggressive one option, and so I would think I'd prefer to have had two options before we go that aggressive, and at least we should say do the 3% and then study the commercial. I mean, maybe with even in the 3%, we can give the commercial a break, but not raise the residential, or still give both things a break. But we don't have to go with what the cost recommendation is. We need to look at it. So as you're looking through the report, just keep that in mind so we can discuss it, because I don't believe it's something we want to do in the near future.
I think I understand what you just said.
And remember, they did phase it in through FY26.
Well, it was a 5-year period, but
Yeah.
the problem that George and Eileen have brought up, and I can agree with the thing, is, okay, they recommend we go 3%, but then it's either a 13% increase for residential or a 16% increase depending on what the city does.
Right.
And so I agree with them and say you can't really do a 3%. It doesn't make sense to do a 3% if you're just going to turn around in 23 and raise the residential rate.
Yep.
So that's where even if it's over a 5-year period, it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And it's just too aggressive. And so,
And I think it's a larger conversation because where does that revenue for the general fund come from?
well, if you do it for the city, yes.
If you have them pay retail, yeah.
Right. And so that will help, and if I understand, Ellen, you're just saying one thing. So that's one, I guess that's what I would say, is that since it was only as one option, didn't give us any other options, the report doesn't, I doubt the final does, then we need to break it out. So I don't think we can do that right away. So I think the 3% and the $10 can be looked at, and then we push the other off to be more reasonable. You see what I'm saying, Eileen?
I understand, yes, that can be a discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you don't need a decision today, and if I did push it that way, I apologize. I'm just saying, if you look at the report in that context, then it would be easier to discuss it, I think. Marty?
I think Eileen's comment about the city trying to save water and, like you mentioned, watering the ABC Park in the middle of the afternoon during July and August. But as far as the city paying the retail rates, the city is the citizens. And the citizens are going to end being, however they got to generate that money for the city to pay for that. That's why I say it's just moving money from one pot to another pot within the city.
I agree. It's coming out of one pocket or the other. But what I've seen so far is that the only way to get the city to reduce their water usage would be to do something drastic to make them do it, because they're not doing it as a result of public comment. So.
Go ahead, Greg.
First off, I appreciate everybody's input, but the thing is, the 3% is on the electrical, not the water. The $10 is on the service charge of the water. So if we go with our capital plan, which was put in place a year ago to move the Muni course to raw water and get them off potable water, that's a 25% savings of money to the city. Okay, that's already in the program. The rebuilding of the sprinkler irrigation system on the Muni course is also going to be a savings in water on the non-potable side. So I've listened to you guys talk, but you're mixing apples and oranges. 3% is electric, $10 off the service charge is water.
The 3% is electric, and you're correct, but it's also we would be increasing the wholesale, from wholesale to retail on the electric side also. Correct?
No, we can't do that because we've got a wholesale contract between our providers.
Yeah, if we take their recommendations at face value, then yes. And what I'm going to suggest and ask people to look at the report is that we don't take their recommendations on face value, that we try to break them out. And I think that's what we're going to have to do to make, so what, as we've talked over the years, a lot of this does, well, not years, but we have talked over several months that this, I think we've all said different things about how we interact with the city and what the city pays, but I think we've all, most of us don't agree that we would go with a full recommendation that the city pays retail for everything. That doesn't, and that's what they're suggesting. We need to discuss it in more details, and I guess if there's still confusion, maybe we can try to give each other's points to do it. But if I'm understanding correctly, we're going to have a major discussion and some agreeance in the next meeting in February, because if we're going to vote on it, we're going to have to be ready to come back in March and vote on it. So that's really going to be one meeting and possibly another workshop in March or something too, that workshop another one to come back with and say, what do we need to do? Because if we're going to recommend the 3% and the $10, what I'm hearing is the city would prefer us to vote on it by the March meeting, what's the date on that? But it's the first Wednesday of March. Is that the 10th?
Yeah.
10th? So we need to have an idea. We could possibly do something and have some homework assigned to us all and try to figure it out. But just want to make sure that it could be. So I'm looking at it right now. We'll talk about it more in the future agenda items, but February is looking like another really long meeting.
Mr. Chairperson, we already made a vote on this tentatively, and that's what George was referring to. So I recommend we break out or dust off that vote that we did on the preliminary topics that we had from the Raftellus report, and we re-look at it and make sure that our vote is consistent from what we voted on back 2 months ago.
That'd be a good starting point you're talking about February's meeting, correct? Okay, that's a good starting point.
I think there's some flaws in this argument. First of all, when I said that, I sort of accused, or I don't know, I said to Reftalis, you're recommending this. They said, we're not recommending anything. So why do we have to vote on recommendations if they're not making any? And secondly, as I said, any recommendations that they might make are based on a reasoning that's completely flawed. So I think we'd be better off doing our own rate study. We got a lot of smart people in this room. Rather than trying to decode line by line this stuff where there's mistakes in every line of the 50 tables. We can do that, but what's the point? Why don't we just make our own decision and say, well, let's look at our rate study. We say this thing is flawed. There's no point in us voting yes or no. It's like if you have a theory, that the moon's made of cheese, and then you therefore conclude something. Well, the moon isn't made of cheese, so what's the point of looking at the consequences of something that's completely wrong? I don't see the point. They may want to vote, but who cares? We don't work for them. We work for the residents. We're supposed to review the rates, not the rate study. So I don't see the point in voting on their recommendations when they didn't even admit to making recommendations. I just don't see the point.
Well, the one thing is they did say that in their meeting, but if I'm understanding correctly, the report does have recommendations. It does say they recommend this. And so that's what's going to go forward to the council.
That's fine, but we're not obliged to vote on the recommendations of the report. Let them forward it to council. I think we'd do the council a better service if we said how flawed this report was. It's full of mistakes.
Well, it has mistakes, yes, and I agree. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with, but I think that we need to point out that the city paid good money for it. So for us just to say throw it out the window and we don't agree with any of it, I don't see how we can really do that. I don't think the city agrees with that. Mm-mm. And so we
don't work for the city. We work for the residents.
We are working. I'm hoping we're trying to work as a committee. We're trying to work as a group. We should be working with everybody, not accusing everybody and not doing things. Greg?
Yeah, basically what we're trying to do is we're a bridge between the report, city staff, to city council. That's in our resolution, okay? The problem is they're looking for us to take the minutia that's being produced in this report and bring it down to something that a layperson, a plain person in the city can understand what they're talking about. I agree with you, George. The problem is we have to take and get through all the straw and the wheat and try to get down into the meat of the matter. But the report we did and the vote we took, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what month it was. Last year, I can say safely. If the report comes back as final draft from what we did on the rough draft, and it has not changed in its inception, then I say we dust off report number, I think we referred to it as 3, or vote number 3, and present that to city council and give it to them after our July 4th, or what is it, the 5th meeting? No, February 5th meeting, is that when our next meeting is?
Is that the 5th, February 5th?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just brought that up just to make certain that I'm on the same path. And then we can electronically send that to city council again, saying we reiterate what our vote is on these recommendations.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think that's a good start. We can't just say the whole report. We have to go into at least some reasoning. We have to give a solution.
I'm happy to go over my reasoning again. I'll just enrage everyone because it's like, okay, this guy's just going around in circles. But I'm happy to go over it again step by step, with what is wrong with this thing. And I think we legitimize it if we say, well, yes, we've read it, and the conclusions are this, and we think, these are correct.
Well, I think that's what we're not necessarily saying they're correct. We said this is their assessment. This is what, and with the information from the city, that's part of it also. So we have a couple different issues that we have to deal with. You know, like I said, my biggest concern is that they've done it with only one option, and it's an aggressive option. So we can discuss it. Now, we've got to be careful. We still don't want to be argumentative to too much of the extent. And we want to work as a group. So I personally want the feedback and want to work with everybody, the city and everybody. We should work with everybody's opinion and then find out. So try to find the facts and then try to figure out what's viable. And so that's the situation. Now, trying to find the facts and trying to go through some of the stuff, that's part of my concern, is that we might not have the time in one meeting in February to try to figure that out. So we've got to find, I think we all agree that if it's feasible, the 3% in electrical, the $10 in water is something we'd like to do. And we think would be a good recommendation. And that goes, and so we do have enough information from Raf Tillis's report, and also then hopefully when we get the fiscal year 22 budget will help us to understand the numbers also. We have enough information to sort of say the 3% makes it. We don't have time, and the city has stated they don't want us to do a rate study. So that's really not feasible for this committee to do a rate study for this coming year. That's what they hired somebody else to do. We can do some recommendations and we can do some things, but to say that we as a committee are going to just dump their report and do our own study is not feasible for this year, definitely not for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I was sort of going around in circles there. But why 3%? Why not 4%? Why not 10%? But given that their numbers are essentially made up, could be anything. So the fact that we paid $200,000, well, would it be better if we paid $400,000? Then I'd be really impressed, Or $1 million? Would that be even more? Is the amount you pay for something, does that determine its value? I don't see that argument at all.
No, it has nothing to do with the amount paid, but if you always take my words out of context, and that's getting very, very annoying. The thing is that what we're trying to do is trying to use the data that was given to us through the consultant, through the city. There is data. They're showing the revenue, and they're showing the revenue requirements, and through that, and the information through the city, they've shown that at least a 3% reductions can be done. The cost of service that I would agree with you on, I don't trust that part of it, is still different. We can still do the 3%, which is still a rate analysis based on that other part of the report. So the whole report you don't necessarily throw out. We just need to understand and work with some of it's broken out.
Not really, because everything, at least my understanding, we can disagree. I mean, that's why there are 7 of us. I mean, the whole idea is we don't have to agree. But the whole thing, as I explained, is based on a franchise fee. And the franchise fee assumes a cost of service, and then down they go. And every chart after that assumes that table 5 for the electric. So it's not true that they're separate issues. It's all tangled in together.
But I digress. We haven't seen the final report. Okay, they might have taken and changed some stuff around to where from the draft for the final is different. That's true. So let's stop beating this bush to death like the bighorn sheep do and just carry on. The problem is I want to see the final draft. And you might find out that a lot of stuff we've been harping about has now been removed
I agree with
or
that.
modified.
Yeah, I want to stop, but I agree with we'll stop, and I'll just make it. But if it's not, we're still somewhat in a problem of how we get past this, because there seems to be a little bit of a division, and I'd prefer to have a unanimous if possible. But how we get through the division is problem.
I don't think it has to be unanimous. I mean, we have 7 people with different opinions. There's no problem. I have no problem being in a minority of 1 or 2, or in the majority. It doesn't matter. I mean, everything doesn't have to be unanimous. That's the whole point of democracy. That's the difference between us and Iraq, is, the president doesn't get 99% of the vote here. We're divided. We're different opinions. Nothing wrong with that.
I'd just like to make one comment. I don't know how good or bad the Raf Tillis report is, but their 3% seems like a reasonable amount to reduce electricity to our citizens because of the situation that we're in right now. But besides that, if you look at the audited Hinton Burdick report for the utility funds from last year, we had $8 million more in revenues than we had expenses, okay? Besides that, if I look at the money that the city has, since they raised the rates, I can't remember for sure whether it began in 2018 or not, and I don't know how much this contributes, the utility fund contributes to this increase in money that the city has. But the revenues, we added 32% in 2018 to our money in the bank, 20% in 2019, 16% in 2020. And so far this year, it's 17%. So we're making money doing something, you know, without doing a great big study. We've got money, and we can give our citizens a break. And that's the main reason that I am in favor of reducing the 3% on utilities. Whether it could be 4 or 5%, I really don't know. It would take a lot of work. But since that we can use that as a backup for the reason why we think it should be 3%, you know, and this, if the city doesn't disagree totally with the rate study, and you know, it's a good recommendation.
You make a very good point, Marty.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anything else on the utility, on the rate study? Okay. So thank you for letting us know that the report is done, Dennis. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll close that down and do the discussion of the integrated resource plan. So my thought was to, again, try to get a head start on what we need to do. And if we were also looking at putting this on February, I think, too. So like I said, the agenda, when we get to agenda item 7, we're going to see how full February is going to be. So Dennis, did you want to start with that?
Yeah, I just want to make a few comments, and then you guys can talk among yourselves. But the integrated resource plan is the plan that's done for our electrical resources. So in that, it includes the where we get our power, whether it's from Hoover or from contractual through SSEA. It also summarizes some of the rebate programs. It's got it looks at our demands and our projections going forward. It was last completed in 2018, and it's a 5-year plan. But I think, as we've discussed, there's enough activity going on with regards to solar and how much rooftop solar. Both of those issues are going to impact our future resources, that it would be good to update that plan. We also had the implementation of SB 258 in the state legislature at the last session, and then of course question 6 passed. So what I thought we could do just for the next meeting is again provide the copy of the current plan to the committee, and maybe update the committee on what SB 258 actually says and what question 6 actually says, because there's actually a few differences. SB 258 is really more defined than question 6. We're not even sure anybody in the state legislature is going to take up question 6, since SB 258 was done already. So we've been working with trying to figure out if anything's going to happen with that. But regardless, they're similar. SB 258 is just more defined, and there's some question of what would come out of question 6. And question 6, by the way, is the one that requires 50% renewable by 2030.
Yeah, the definition would be helpful, because I believe I read it one way, and so it doesn't sound like I'm understanding it the same way that some people have said it to be. So that would be helpful. Greg?
I thought question 6 was for investor-owned utilities and for-profit utilities, municipalities were exempted from question 6.
No,
So that's
unfortunately
in there
not.
on question 6, municipalities?
Yep. Basically everybody. So originally, it was all focused at NV Energy, frankly. And then that was changed, so.
Could you send us a copy email us a copy of the language? That would be helpful, just so, we don't trust you on that, it's just a matter of understanding.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've understood it differently myself, so I just want to make sure. But that would be very helpful to bring it.
And I can check, I believe, our executive director of the Nevada Rural Electric Association has summarized both of those, both of what's in SB 258 as well as what's in question 6. So that would probably be a good document.
Okay. Now then also, was there going to be enough time to get an initial assessment on the rooftop solar?
We could do a projection of what we think is going to happen in the next, say 5 years, but I wouldn't be ready to provide anything that dovetailed in with the rest of our resource plan. That's going to take more than a few months.
No, that's fine.
But we can certainly show you, a list of the commercial and the residential, the sizes of those systems. We have all that in a spreadsheet and how much to date, and then show you how we're going to project out, because we're essentially adding 2 per week. Is that right, Mom? 2 per week? 2 per week, and they average probably 10 kilowatts, something like that.
Okay.
So we can look at that average. Now the commercial obviously are a little bit bigger, and some of our residential have been bigger than that. But we'll get that spreadsheet, we'll bring it to the February meeting.
Well, the integrated resource plan, so Greg, I was thinking you were getting ready to say push it off. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, our February meeting is pretty full. If we can push it off a month, it would help. The problem is that we're getting a lot of stuff in the February meeting, and it's gonna maybe, if we don't get February 5th done, we're gonna have to put another meeting in February.
No,
I don't really want to do that, but if we have to, I guess we're going to have to get ahead of the ball. And the other thing that I'm getting some feedback on from rooftop solar in Boulder City, not only that they're a wholesaler, they're a generator, but the thing that's troubling me is I got bid on this Marv, 30 years ago, I got bid on this as undersized neutrals in our system. There's so much power going back on the neutral circuit into the cans that we've got to really do an assessment as whether our cans are overheating, because there's so much dirty power going back through the neutral. It's not going through the ground in the customer installed system, but it's going back through our neutral circuit back into the panels. So as a provider of electricity, I think we should just take a amp probe and clamp on one of the neutral circuits on one of the new KW solar systems on a roof and see what kind of power is going back through the neutral. Because I'd sure hate to start having customers complaining about dirty power and inherent loads going back in their neutrals and causing other problems downstream, especially with the fact that there's a lot of poly pipe in cold water lines or PVC, and that's not a good conductor in soil for return back to earth. So I think that's going to be something as we get more solar in the system, in our network, we're going to have to take a good hard look at how things are acting, do an engineering study basically on the power grid.
Yeah, so I think the 'cause by looking at the plan that we talked about in the Capitol, doing a plan of how to get things done, and the integrated resource plan, I guess that's what we think. Those somewhat dovetail together, because we got to make sure that how we've got the resources and how we can.
And that's why my thought was, let's use this time frame, and we can decide whether it's 6 months or whatever, to update the integrated resource plan and include these conversations as part of that update.
Okay. Okay, so I guess on the future agenda, I got another question, but.
I had a comment on the resource plan, because just for the record, I think the one we have is valid until July of 2023.
Yes.
So
It is, but the only thought is,
Yeah.
we're modifying our resource portfolio as we speak,
Okay.
both
Yeah.
with the rooftop and the SWA and the town site. So
Okay, fair.
it's just gonna look different. It may not be that big of an impact. But I think we need to study it and know for sure, if nothing else, to be able to communicate to council that the resource plan is still valid.
Well, the sooner we start, the better off we.
Yep.
So then we don't keep running into, like, we have been running into with not having enough data. And like, so I agree with what you said, but now because I think you sort of dovetail them in with the capital.
Yep.
If we find that there is a problem, that we might need to change some of the capital plans or
Right.
add something to it, maybe.
And we would have to sit down with SSEA and have them help us with some of that planning.
Yeah,
So we would need that time to do that as well.
right. So, okay, so I agree. So we'll go over it. So Greg, am I missing, if we go over it as a basic topic in February, is that what you're, Dennis, saying?
Yes.
Just to give us some information?
Yeah, we'd give you the background information on how much we've got in the system and the sizes and how much commercial, how much residential.
Okay, is that any problem, Greg?
We can give you an update on our net metering. We can show you what the net metering policy looks like. So all that stuff we have and use today, we can provide that.
And the reason I'm asking the question is because the solar rebate or the solar system backfeed initiative is in the resolutions for the rates. So we got to get that done to where when we do the resolution on the rates, we can take and say that the buyback of solar, because you're a generator, is going to remain at the wholesale rate, and that's how it's going to be. And that's why I'm bringing this up, is in other words, there's an end run to my deal, and that's in the resolutions.
Yep. I know.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do. And then, believe it or not, this is very scary for me as an electrician, is everything you have rooftop solar has to be backed up with immediate generation. So you're paying for your electricity twice. I don't care what anybody says, you're paying for it twice.
That's
The
correct.
city of Boulder City has to be at the ready to supply 10 kW to any rooftop solar system at any given time. Okay, so now you got a double problem that the people of Boulder City are not listening to and seeing, because the salesman is getting real slick at telling them what it's going to be. And that's been my rub all along. When we do our resolution review for our rates, the generation of solar has to be printed out in black and white as to what the cost or what we're going to credit you back as money. It does not go a KW for a KW. It goes generation back in, you're a generator, so you're being credited with this
Wholesale.
penny amount, wholesale rate of electricity, not the retail rate. And for people that think that I am going to sell my solar or send my solar back into the system to let my neighbor use it, well, that's wheeling charge. Okay, the wheeling charge is the difference between the wholesale rate and the retail rate. Okay, so if you want to put in battery storage on your house, and this is why I'm talking about, the people in Boulder City do not understand what this is going to do to our 60, 70, 80-year-old system. Okay, it is going to jack us up big time. So then you have to look at the possibility as a committee that you're going to put a cap on solar in Boulder City. Okay, and then you're going to have everybody fighting with each other because they want to be in that first tier. So these are some of the headaches and problems we have as not only electricians, the committee, but also the utility providers of Boulder City. And that's why I'm saying you're going to have backfeeds of dirty power on neutrals. You're going to have all kinds of problems cropping up. And you're going to go, where's this coming from? And now you got to do a study. So instead of you just blank check signing a person's installation, we, the utility provider, has to really look hard at what it's doing to our system.
Well, yes and no. I mean, again, I'm not going to argue with you on the electric because you're the expert and you know infinitely more than I'll ever know. But also, if we ignore climate change, which is the driver for these difficult changes that are happening, then the question is, what is the cost of just going on with fossil fuels and saying, well, you know, yes, we've gone on with fossil fuels. Yes, the river flows are going down. Yes, the local climate's been destabilized, but that's just bad luck. It's a coincidence. it puts you in a difficult position. I think clearly climate change is a challenge for the next generation. The scientists have been sounding the alarm over and over, as they did for COVID. COVID didn't come out of thin air. There were studies in the science as one of the top 5 risks in the UK was a pandemic. One scientist even bet $400 that 1 million people would die within a 1-year interval in the next 4 years. And the scientists are sounding the alarm on climate, loud and clear. If we ignore that, we ignore that at our peril. In a place like Boulder City, which is the best place in the world for solar, if you look at a map, show me another place in the world that's better. If we say we're going to penalize people or limit them for doing solar, we're making a mistake. I agree with Greg. I'm not a car salesman. If you pretend it's going to be easy, you're fooling people. No, it's never easy to change things. Building a freeway system in America wasn't easy. World War II wasn't easy. But these are the stakes that we're playing for in this game. And so I think we should have a more long-term vision than just saying solar's inconvenient, so let's just shut it down. I think that's a mistake.
I don't think anybody's saying shut it down. All we're trying to say is let's get the facts. And so the earlier we bring out the facts, the better off we are. And
Well,
then
again,
we
in
can
fairness, he was saying
discuss.
put a cap on it, which is shutting it down.
It was a statement, not a conclusion. There's a difference.
Let me expound one more moment. If you take 50 meg of power and you've got 50 meg of generation in Boulder City, and just like you say, George, if the rivers dry up and if this happens, and if a cloud comes over Boulder City at 50 meg and we got to backfeed 50 meg from a provider, this town's going to be hurting for electricity. Transformers don't like that. They don't like switching from a positive flow to a negative flow. So you have to do a sequential, and 50 meg, I used to build 250 megawatt solar farms. So guess what? 1/5 of that would power Boulder City. Now at night, you're in trouble because now you got to buy power on the market. So this is the problem that we have a committee, utility advisory committee, have for the citizens of Boulder City. How do we most effectively utilize the funds we have coming in to give them the best possible product for the lowest rate? You go utility grade solar, I can control my ramp up and ramp down of generators, whether they be steam fired through natural gas or whatever, or I can buy spot market to overcome this deficiency. But it's very scary as a utility provider and an operator that you see 250 megawatts of electricity go offline in 5 minutes. Now you're scrambling trying to get that. We're a small community, 50, 60 meg, we can handle that. But to see 250 meg go offline in 5 minutes, and then guess what? There's 5 minutes wait to get it restarted, because that's the way it's built.
But we don't use 250 megawatts.
I'm talking about 50 or 40. If you put 100% solar in Boulder City, we cannot handle the reserve load that we have to buy on reserve at any given time. We will bankrupt this city, utility electric-wise.
Well, I think long-term, you're going to have to redesign the grid, and that's just what it is.
That's fine, but it is not going to happen in your lifetime or mine.
No, it is going to happen because it's actually on the governor's website. They said they're going to zero emissions by 2050. That's not going to happen in 2049. It's starting to happen now.
That is 30 years from now, and I don't have a gambling habit or anything, but I don't think I'm going to be alive in another 30 years to see it happen.
Well, I think it's a mistake if we say if we're not going to be alive, then the hell with it. I think we leave the earth to the people who came after us, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't leave it in worse shape than we found it. But that's just going way off topic, I agree.
Anything else on the integrated resource plan?
No, that's it.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll close that agenda item. We'll go to agenda item number 5. And so for possible action, discussion of timescales for completing and drafting reports, but to update the city council. But I think we're also I don't know if we have to do we need to redo that? Is that discussion of timescales for completing and drafting reports to update? Do we want to, is that broad enough to cover, because basically the idea is that it covers everything that we're trying, that the resolution is asking us to do. So is everybody happy with that title, or should that be modified? for future.
For me, as one, I'm very happy with it, but I think we need to add in there for possible discussion that we are going to have, we, the committee, are going to have a presentation on January 26th, was it, at the city council meeting? So that should be on this document, that we say that on January 26th, we're going to have a member present the report that we have sent to city council.
Okay, so just so it's clear,
Right,
it
exactly.
won't go on this document, but we can put it in the minutes.
Right.
So in the minutes, you want it stated that there will be a report. So the fiscal year 22 SIP report that was emailed to the council will be presented, or there'll be, because actually, are we actually presenting it, or is it just going to be that?
Well, that's what we need to certainly define that, is just, here's a report to city council and I'm here to answer questions. That's one option. The other one would be a presentation.
Well, George wanted to
Which I
speak.
guess would be summarizing the report.
I think it's better if I'm there to answer questions. That's
Yeah,
my take on it.
George wanted to speak at that meeting and present that one report that we have.
But the thing is, present or ask, be available for questions. It's
I think
two
be
separate-
available for questions, but maybe other people disagree. I'm anti-PowerPoint.
You're the one that volunteered, so.
That's what I'm trying to say is that, he is going to be presenting the FY22 report because there are some people that just don't have time to read it.
Sure, I can do that too. I can just
And then
summarize
answer
it.
questions
We
as
just need to
needed.
know so we can get the defined on the staff report correctly.
So the word is presentation or something like that?
Yes,
So as I say, I'm sort of allergic to PowerPoints. I'm happy to just speak, just sit
and
down.
that's fine.
Because I find we've drowned in PowerPoints for a year and a half here.
Yeah, I would assume
Yeah,
you
I'd rather
could
just
just do a brief summary and then ask them if they have any
Yes,
questions.
sir. I agree with that.
Okay.
I can agree on something.
So good point. So for the record and in the minutes, so it won't be on this agenda item, for the minutes. And so we wouldn't change this agenda item for the future. We would just put into the minutes that per this report that there will be a presentation.
By a utility advisory committee member.
That sounds good. And it'll
Okay.
be, and then basically just summarize, a presentation that summarizes the report that had been already given to the
Minutes,
council.
yeah.
And then the thing is that we can also do then, that's one of our deliverables as a committee, and that will be going over too.
And one last point is, since, you sort of argued about you don't want me to ad lib and all that, and I actually agree with that. That's why I've been pushing for written reports so much, so that, that's the document that matters. I can sit here and say, I want, free ice cream or whatever I want, or someone other than me. That's why I keep pushing for written reports, because that's the document that matters, not what I stand and say. So I think written reports are a good idea.
Okay, so now then we have two upcoming aspects for this. And I think maybe I'll go ahead and, I think it can be brought up now because it's either this or the next agenda item, and it's probably in both. But for right now, let me clarify, we have two things that we are going to try to report on. We're going to do the report for the review of the 5-year SIP in February. And so we're going to have a workshop, work on the report, and then we're going to then vote on the next meeting. So Dennis, am I okay to discuss that a little bit more just to make sure that it's...
Yes.
Okay. So Greg and George, do you have all the information you need to finish the report, or is there any information that you need from a committee member or from the city to help with that report?
City has arranged a meeting for the next week with myself and a couple key members to get the 5-year action plan / report detailed out as fine as we can for a vote on our regular meeting on February 5th.
Okay, and so your draft report as a Word document needs to go, the city needs that by when?
Hold my calendar. February 3rd is a Wednesday, yep, so we would need it, by the 27th-ish? Does that sound right?
Is that Wednesday or Thursday?
For our meeting,
Right.
yeah.
For your purposes, you need it Wednesday or Thursday, the week before?
Wednesday's preferable.
Wednesday, okay.
We can,
So you, what day,
the 24th,
the
oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at February, January 27th.
January 27th, okay.
Okay.
Okay, and so the next report after that is going to be, I think we need to figure out, so I guess we'll just say it this way. If we agree as a committee, or if the majority of the committee agrees that a 3% reduction in rates should be presented, that we would agree with the report, that happens, and a $10 in this water service charge, a $10 reduction be done, that we need that to be voted on by March. So in February, we have to have that on the agenda, and we need to have a discussion to get that started. Is that what everybody understands? So February, we'll start that, and March, we will have to have some form of written communication to finalize, if we agree to that. If the majority agrees, if we don't, then I guess we don't have it going on, but I think that's what we do. Now, okay, so those are the two items that are going forward. Asking this, go ahead, Eileen.
Shouldn't we also be discussing the utility rate study and have a response to the council?
I guess the question is since there is so many recommendations, I feel that we can have something to them by March on the 3%. To have it for everything, then that would be a third one, you're correct, but it's not by March, right?
Well,
Is that the way
that
you
would be
understand?
something we would just discuss in February.
To figure out when it fits in.
Yeah.
Okay, no, good point, thank you. So that's the third, is that, so we have the 3%, which is just a piece of the recommendation, and then we have how we're gonna break out the rest of the report. Is that how we would look at it? Is that, thank you, Eileen, that helps a lot. So that's three things, there are three major things that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. We have the integrated plan that we're resource plan that we're talking about. That's a timescale we're looking at. We're looking at the resolutions, Greg, so that's, what was your thought? And I guess Dennis, so if we go in March to say that we agree with it, so will we do the resolutions in February, or do we have to push it off in March?
I think you need to get the recommendations to council, and council needs to take action, and then we staff would come back with the resolutions for council approval. That would move us into the public hearing process, because I think we got to go with 2 meetings to get final approval.
So we don't have a whole lot of time, though, it has to be approved by May, so that's April, that's what.
So we could start working on the resolutions as staff internally, making some assumptions that certain things will happen. And then if they change, we just have to modify them on the run.
Okay.
Might I interject one thing? This is a very good document that they put out over a year ago. If you guys have copies of this, I recommend you bring it to the February 3rd meeting, because this will clarify a lot of the things on the resolutions.
Yep.
Right, just realize
Because I see the resolution, the new one, being much more streamlined than this 25 page document. Mm-hmm. There are some stuff in here we need to clean up, but it's not going to be a big problem, but that we'll discuss later.
Yep.
Well, so let's look at the agenda and see if we can discuss it quickly in February.
Okay.
And just say that, so basically it probably would be a homework assignment that if people could read through that would be handy. Just realizing that those are not the most current resolutions, but the only thing that was changed was they just eliminated the 2.5%. So everything else is the exact same thing except for that. But it is not the current one, just so everybody understands.
No, you do realize that this product that we're going to be producing with a 3% reduction on raw water and 10% on electric, 3% on electric, 10% on water is going to change every single piece of paper in this document. Okay, whether it be sports field lighting, park watering, different things, it all has to be reviewed and changed. This is going to be a very arduous process. Okay, and so if we get the rate study finalized and get our vote to be recommended to City Council, then that will drive this whole document being rewritten.
You might need that, then you might need a full workshop, because that is very timely.
This is going to be a real big problem.
So, okay, there again, let's back into it, so we're all on the same page. So when would we have to have so if we vote and we say that the 3% and the $10 is something we want to do, we recommend that they do. So they said that has to be voted on twice, it has to be in 2 council meetings before
To finalize the rates, the new rate structures.
Now, could that be separate months, or can it be in the same month?
It could probably be in the same month.
So it could be
2 weeks apart.
in April, or last part of April and first part of May. If things got push come to shove, is that possible?
Yeah, in fact, you could probably do the second hearing where they finalize the vote at City Council on May 15th, because that's also the date of I take that back. So they publish the notice of the public hearing for the budget on May 15th, and then the adoption is on May 25th.
Because I'm just saying, it's another ones that we're going to bite off more than we can chew if we're not careful. We're talking about a full meeting, we won't have a full meeting in March. We can hit it hard in March. It depends if we have 1 or 2 meetings. And my availability is a little limited in March. April.
Mine too.
April.
No.
April is a possibility, so but we'd have to do it, we'd have to have something changeable by April. So they would be voting on a resolution, they'd be voting on a final resolution, correct? Not a draft.
Right.
So we'd have to have a final ready. So I guess we would, I'll just repeat what you said. So you guys are gonna start looking at it yourself then, the city?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll discuss it, look at the agenda, we need to discuss it February, but most likely March.
Yeah.
So we've got a big plan, but I just want to make sure, so we're all sort of familiar with what we're trying to do, what we're trying to get and help in council. So that's a big portion, and thank you, Greg, for bringing up that document. That's a good place, it's a great place to start. It's a great place to start. So we can go there, and so we have the resource. Now, where is the conservation plan? Where does that sit?
As far as the water conservation plan?
I think it's a conservation overall is what's in our resolution. So is that that's how many? What's the schedule that is actually going to be voted on, or has to be amended, or whatever?
I don't think there's any specific schedule for that. Are you talking about the water conservation plan?
I think, like I said, our agenda says we will interact with conservation plans.
Yeah, I think that would be 2 different issues, because one of them would be tied to the integrated resource plan on the electric side, the other one would be water.
Okay, so the integration plan we already know. Is there a water plan that's coming up?
Typically, the water authority revises their water conservation plan on a fairly regular basis. I think Colby went over it when SNWA presented last year. I just can't remember if that's an annual update or a 5-year plan.
But I think that one might be a 5-year, but Boulder City.
Boulder City, we would probably need to review what's in our ordinance and start looking at that from any changes we would want to make with regards to our own conservation plan.
So I think we've been putting that off, and I think, so that's a topic, I would think we want to start discussing the facts, just looking at things and then looking at because basically, things have been brought up that, okay, to not try to start discussing, which is that where can Boulder City, if there's medium grass on medians or something like that, the light, again, the easy fruit that we can start discussing conservation on.
Yeah.
So
I would suggest we start doing that in June.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to get an idea, so
Yeah.
that's, I think with everything going on, I just want to do it. So, so then I guess what I'll do is bring it up here and then discuss it. So I think so we can all sort of understand or try to figure out what our role is and make sure that, especially me, make sure I'm not misunderstanding something. So I would like to put on the agenda for next item, February, so again, it'd have to be a quick discussion, but to discuss the resolution that created us, and at least read through I believe it's 5 items that we are obligated to. The items, I guess the items that there are certain items that we say we do, but we're not limited to. So I want to try to get an understanding what the city believes we should be helping with and what we believe. So if we get a start on that, then maybe there'll be less confusion on some of the issues of how we're presenting things or getting things accomplished. Is there any problem with that?
I have a request. Let's push that off till March. We got February's pretty full plate.
Okay, well, think about it, and if you can start thinking about it for March, then I don't have a problem with that.
I think for that it'd be useful to hear from council, because essentially, when this thing was created, they were adamant that we report directly to them. I can, that's on the video. So if we're going to discuss that, it's worth having their input as well.
It would, but then they did give us a little bit. But I guess that's the reason I'm trying to say is, well, tell you what, do me a favor. So as another homework assignment, at least everybody at least read the full resolution. It's only 2 pages. And see that we're all on the same page, and then in March or so we'll discuss it. If we can get input from the council, I'd greatly appreciate it, but we'll see what we can do. It might be time, maybe, if that's the case, then maybe we would have to do that in April or May when we can have another workshop with the council.
I've actually asked them for input for the record, but so far radio silence, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, they did give us some guidelines at the last meeting, but please read the resolution so we can at least we can be on the same page. Okay, so is there anything else I'm missing on the reports? So agenda item number 5. Going once, going twice. Okay, so we'll go there. So just for the record, there is no agenda item 6. And now we'll go to agenda item number 7. Right.
We figured that one out.
So, just for the record, so then we goes, what happened to 6 and why'd you skip it? There is none. So we need to go with future, so let's.
It's like floor 13 on the hotels.
So I have a pretty good list, I think, from last time to try to keep moving forward. Okay, so so what, do we agree that what we need to do is I guess we would go with a 1 o'clock, on February 3rd, 1 o'clock workshop? And in that workshop, we are going to do ongoing capital again, and the working capital, or the 5-year, it's gonna be 5-year review. Now, some of these other items we've talked about, is that gonna go on, do we wanna put that into the workshop, or do we just put it into the regular meeting?
I think we need to have some of it in the workshop.
I
Okay,
think you want to have the rate study discussion in the workshop, right?
yeah, so we're going to, so we've agreed that we're going to do a longer workshop. Is Holly, do you know, or does anybody know, is there anybody behind us on February 3rd?
Usually not, if that's in your normal meeting day.
That should be.
Yeah, then you
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's your day.
Appreciate it. So, okay, so we've got 3 items. Is there a fourth? What was the integrated do we want to put the beginning of the solar on that workshop also? Or the beginning of the integrated source, your basic stuff?
Sure, I don't think that'll take that much time. It's just presentation of some information.
Okay, so that would be the ongoing capital, the rate study, and that. Was there anything else?
Do you want the IRP at the main meeting, or do you want it on the workshop?
Well, that's what I was asking. If it's,
That doesn't matter to me.
Why don't we push it into the formal meeting?
Okay, yeah, because it's just basically here's some material.
Right, and that way we'll have an understanding as the committee as to what we're trying to look for or at. There's a lot of undercurrents in Boulder City for solar, and the problem is the people that are in the market to sell it are not giving factual information out, and it's causing a lot of problems for people that I personally know that have installed it under false pretense. The payback period is almost 3 times as much.
yeah, that's good. So, but we're gonna basically, just so it's clear, what I've suggested is we reverse the role, is that we make a longer workshop and a shorter regular meeting. But so we would keep that, because, well, just really quick, in the regular meeting, we still have the minutes, and then we would have, which would be, in this case, 5, which would have been 6, so we'd have the discussion of timescales and reports, and we'd have the future items. We'd have at least 3 items. We have the integration again, and then we would have to have 2 again, because we'd be voting on it. Would we have anything that we want to, I guess we should put it on the agenda item for possible action for the rate study in case we did come up with
Yep.
something
Yes.
in that meeting. So we have about the same agenda as we do right now. Well, we have the exact same agenda unless we do something different for the regular meeting,
Yeah,
so.
I'd prefer to get the rate study for possible action, and only because if this committee decides to move forward, that buys us a little more time.
Right.
Yeah. Because otherwise we're going to March.
Right. So if we did get lucky and could make a decision on it.
Right.
So was there I should have been writing it. Eileen, you've been doing is there anything else that we were talking about for February as an agenda item?
Well, what I've got right now for the workshop, we're gonna have ongoing capital, 5-year capital plan, review, the rate study, which will include both discussion of the 3% and $10, and deciding if we wanna go make any recommendations on the remaining. Then Dennis will do the presentation on the solar power. And that's all for the workshop.
Actually, we moved the solar power that's gonna go to the regular meeting now,
Yeah.
right? Because that's part of the integrated plan.
And then the other thing I have is we would be adding that project progress report to the discussion with ongoing. So it's still the same topic, but it'd have an
Okay.
additional spreadsheet.
Right, and then so by adding that, then Dennis and Josh, can you add, so per Greg's recommendation, can you add our report for the recommendations? So the report that we sent to council, not the fiscal year 22, but the recommendation. So I guess that report that has 3 pages, because if we include the motions, so it'd probably be good to include the motions.
Okay, is that workshop or regular agenda?
That's the workshop.
Workshop,
Yeah.
okay, so just include it as the rate study in the
Good.
staff report? Because we got rate study up.
Yes, so I guess, yeah, because you're gonna include the full rate study for that, you're gonna send us an early copy, but you're gonna include the rate study,
Right.
the
And then
full
we'll-
rate.
And then we'll include that document in
Yeah.
the staff report as well.
Right, so we're gonna start, and then
Yep.
we're also gonna have, we'll have Greg and George report to add into for the 5-year plan.
All right. I think that's enough.
That's plenty. I'm just trying to make sure that we'd said it. So I know that's why I'm saying we're filling February up.
Yeah, no, going through my notes, that's all I can find.
So I would say for that meeting, we've got, that's 1 o'clock to, do we want to go 4 or 5 on that meeting? Yeah, for the workshop.
I'd
Okay,
say
you're
4.
being, can we compromise and go to 4:30? Can we do that as an half hour, or is it, you guys prefer full hours?
It doesn't matter.
I'd say compromise and do 4:30, so that'd be, give us
So 1
three
to
and a half
4:30?
hours, because we're gonna be discussing the report. We spend an hour on the ongoing before, hopefully we won't do something like that.
Yeah, I would think that would be fine, because I think if progress that's made on the 1 o'clock should make the main agenda.
Yeah,
Really
so if we finish up pretty good, we're gonna do this one in almost only 2 hours, which maybe only to some isn't
So
more,
we'll
but,
start the second one at 4:45?
okay. Yeah, 4:45, that sounds good. And then we could hopefully be not super long in the other one.
Yeah, I've got a note here that we were also going to talk about the draft operating maintenance budget.
Yes.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, actually, yes.
And
So
I would
that-
say that's workshop.
Workshop, yeah. So 4:30 is gonna be, yeah, that's still pushing it.
And then you had asked for a breakout of the cash balances restricted by each utility, the available cash balances
Yeah,
divided by,
Yeah, we were gonna find out
Yeah,
how,
if you-
when and how we can make that happen, so I got that as a doable, or at least a question for finance to get back to you guys. And
Okay, is that something you think you can have by next meeting, or do you think, since it's from them, you can't guarantee anything?
I don't know,
Okay.
so, we can always add it to the agenda if, depending on what I find out.
What they find out, okay, because I guess that would be it would help us in the capital, just so we know exactly what each utility has.
Yeah.
So I think it'd probably be
I
added in the
suspect
5-year.
we should be able to have it at least for that February meeting, that information, but I need to just.
Yeah, even if it's just as of January or
Right.
December, that would be helpful.
Right.
That, just to know it, say, okay, here's a given point, not too far back, but that we'd have it, so I think hopefully, thank you, Eileen, that's helpful. Okay, so, is there anything in the future that we had discussed that we need to, well, let's just look at, okay, so there's gonna be some workshops on the capital and on the, operation, on the, finance plans in the future. So between now and March, right?
Yep, city council workshops 1 and 2 are in February 10th and March 10th.
So we're doing the review. Okay, so just so I understand, we still want, if we can, it would be preferable if we had some type of input from the committee on the work, because that's one thing I don't think we have. So it'd be another report, is that instead of just talking about, we need a report on the fiscal year 22 finances, correct? So the budget.
Yep, the O&M budgets, yes.
And we need that by, what, the 1st of
we would need-
February?
yeah.
I mean, April?
First meeting in April.
First, so we would be voting on that, so that would have to be we'd have to put that in the March agenda, agenda to make sure we go. And,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then if we have, so, we might, for several times, I don't know if this will be a habit, is doing a workshop and then a regular meeting to sort of keep things moving forward. So we might have to do the same thing in March and April. So, okay. So we'll just have to hit it, make sure we don't miss anything, but trying to back into everything, that's what I understand. So anything else with future agenda items that anybody is concerned with, or make sure we at least get it on, so we know what we're working towards?
Sounds like we have February and March already figured out, so I say that's it. Call for public comment.
Okay, so just so we're sure though, so we're gonna start the February meeting is gonna be February 3rd, 1 o'clock for the workshop. We're gonna go through 4:30 and then start the regular meeting at 4:45, because I forgot about, we have to have the time schedule. So And then we'll try to do the best we can in a reasonable time frame from 4:45 on. Okay, so, so just make sure, so any other comments before we close out the last agenda item? Once, twice, third. Okay. Yep. And so now we will open up to the last public comment period. Again, the phone number is 702-589-9629. And this can be on any subject.
You're on.
Yes, again for the record, Fred Volz, committee members. In coming up with the committee's recommendations for the 5-year capital project plan, it's important to be realistic about appropriating money in a given year that can't be spent because of insufficient project management or staffing. Given money actually spent or encumbered, many of the proposed projects won't be completed in the planned year. If the project budgets need to be pushed into future years, then they should be, regardless of how necessary the projects are to reliability or safety. After today's various amounts of unrestricted cash that are allegedly available, we still don't know how much of this money is split out between operating and capital projects. From the committee comments, we appear to have a superabundance of utility cash, but the Finance Department has not clarified where the money specifically belongs or how it can be posted between operations and capital. This situation suggests a mere 3% reduction in electric rates is inadequate to return excess money collected from ratepayers. The glut of money will not be spent in the foreseeable future on operations or optimistic capital projects that will not be completed in the forecasted fiscal years. Our present electric rates are not that much lower than investor-owned NV Energy, even though our wholesale acquisition costs are significantly below NV Energy's, and municipal utilities have no profit factor built into rates such as NVE does. Ballot question number 6 is 50% renewable requirement for Boulder City by 2030 would be fulfilled by the hydroelectric power that is our dominant electricity source, unless a future legislature changes that. The current definition includes hydroelectric as a renewable power source. Unless there are significant federal or state subsidies to cover the enormous costs of installing rooftop solar at residences, 4 cents a kilowatt hour rebate will mean a payback period of many decades, not including ongoing replacements for panels and inverters. Discussion at a future committee meeting should include the new costs of building or rebuilding our electric grid to safely handle large-scale, bidirectional flows of electricity. Any solar participants need to be charged at an appropriate monthly standby rate, as battery storage is not sufficiently advanced to power a property overnight or on cloudy days without tapping into the grid. And I would ask that these comments be added to the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 4:59.